This unworldly picture you see right here is called a tesseract. Hopefully by the end of this video, you'll have some understanding as to what this is and what the fourth spatial dimension is. First of all, to understand the fourth dimension, you will need a very strong grasp of all the dimensions preceding it. So, let's start with the 0th dimension. Imagine this dot to be an infinitely small point in space. For example, when you draw a point like this on a simple graph, you are essentially creating an infinitely small point in the 0th dimension. The 0th dimension has no length, height, or width involved, thus meaning there is no volume, which can seem kind of weird. Some practical examples of using this dimension would be from the ideal gas law. When using Newton's laws to create an equation for the pressure of a gas in a container, the particles are assumed to have no volume, and therefore are in the 0th dimension. If you take this point and extend it into a line, that is, taking two different points and connecting them, you have the first dimension. The first dimension has length, but no width or height. Similarly, from the first dimension, where you take 2 points and connect them, if you take 2 lines and connect them, you end up with a square, or the second dimension. The second dimension has length and width, but no height. If you take 2 squares and connect all of their points, you end up with a cube, or the third dimension. The third dimension has length, width, and height. Here is a better picture showing the third dimension. Another way to describe length, width, and height could be on a graph, such as x, y, and z. You could also think of it this way. Whatever room you are in, look at a top or a bottom corner. See how there are 3 lines that connect all at one point? Each of those lines are perpendicular from each other. So hopefully you guys see a pattern here. Going up in dimensions utilizes all of the previous dimensions. To get to the first dimension, you have to start with 2 points. To get to the second dimension, you have to start with 2 lines. To get to the third dimension, you have to start with 2 squares. And with every increase in dimension, you are basically adding a new direction. Each new direction is perpendicular from all of the other directions. Thus, to get to the fourth dimension, you have to start with 2 cubes and connect them. As you see in this picture, the yellow lines connect 2 cubes. Imagine the yellow lines as lines that are perpendicular from all other 3 directions, x, y, and z. The only issue with looking at this picture is that you are looking at it from a 2-dimensional computer screen or phone screen, so it just looks like a bunch of messed up lines. So, instead of having you imagine a new fourth direction, which is basically impossible, I'll show you some good examples that can help you conceptualize the fourth dimension just a little bit better. If you take a cube and unfold it, as shown in this video, you end up with some squares shaped as a cross in the second dimension. Likewise, if you take a tesseract and unfold it, you end up with some cubes shaped as a cross in the third dimension. Suppose there is a world with 2-dimensional creatures, that is, a creature who can only see in 2 directions. If this 2-dimensional creature was introduced to a 3-dimensional creature, such as a human, he would only see a 2-dimensional cross-section image of us as we pass through their world. Likewise, if a 4th-dimensional creature was passing through our 3D world, we would only see slivers of that creature, which is really creepy in my opinion. Imagine the sun is directly above these objects. As you see, the shadow from a 1-dimensional object, the line, is a point. A shadow from a two-dimensional object, the square, is a line. And a shadow from a three-dimensional object, the cube, is a square. Thus, the shadow of a tesseract, or a fourth-dimensional object, would be a cube. The only issue about this animation is that the tesseract we see moving can only be interpreted by us humans as a 3D object, because we are looking at it from a 2D screen. So hopefully you guys have a little bit of a better understanding as to what the fourth spatial dimension is and what a tesseract is. I even have a hard time figuring it out, but I mean, we're humans. It's like explaining a color to someone. You really can't. If you guys have any questions, let me know, and maybe in the next video I can talk about how the fourth dimension could also be time.